I had a whole paradigm shift about financial freedom when I heard Kiyosaki explain the cash flow quadrant and how to get out of the rat race. I knew I had to make significant changes.
Like, subscribe, and share to Voices of Linden TV.
Hello, lovely folks. Welcome to another Money Minute episode. I'm Ingrid B. Clayton. Today I'm going to explain the cash flow quadrant and the quadrants that you should reside in to achieve financial freedom sooner than later. Now, the cash flow quadrant is a concept that was introduced to me by Robert Kiyosaki. And for those of you who do not know Robert Kiyosaki, he is the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. There's a whole book series, Rich Dad Poor Dad, that I read all of them, and you should too. There are great lessons there to be learned. So I see Robert Kiyosaki as one of the greatest financial literacy teacher, perhaps even the greatest in my time. He always stressed the importance of achieving financial independence to get out of the rat race as fast as possible. And by the rat race, he means the daily work grind. In fact, the cash flow quadrant should be correctly called Rich Dad's cash flow quadrant because it was really his rich dad. Well, Robert Kiyosaki has two dads. He called his real dad, right? His poor dad, right? Which I'll explain later. And then he called his friends, his really good friend's dad, who was rich, his rich dad. Makes sense, right? So he has two dads, rich dad and poor dad. So it was his rich dad who taught him about the cash flow quadrant. He taught him how there are 4 different ways in which you can make income. And what Kiyosaki did, he represented them in a pictorial quadrant that can be easily understood and remembered by anyone. Right? Once you look at it, once you see it once, you will remember the cash flow quadrant. And by now you may be asking, so what is this cash flow quadrant? Well, the cash flow quadrant is like a square that is divided into 4 sections, where each section corresponds to one of the ways to make income. And the 4 ways to earn income are: 1, as an employee. And when you're an employee, that means you have a job. 2, self-employed, right? So when you're self-employed, this means you own a job. You own a job because you're the boss, but you're also the employee. And the 3rd one is as a business owner. And when you're a business owner, this means you run a system and you have people working for you. And 4 is as an investor. This means you have money working for you. I love the sound of that. Hence, you're making money while you're sleeping, while you're sipping pina colada on the beach, even if you're there for 2 or 3 months, right? You still have money working for you, right? So you're getting rich and richer, and you're really just chilling and having fun, right? So you can also refer to the cash flow quadrant as the ESBI quadrant, where E is for employee, S for self-employed, B for business, and I for investor. Now, take a few seconds to ponder this question. Which quadrant or quadrants would you say the 10% of the population that owns 90% of the wealth or the world's wealth resides? And I do hope that your response is the B and I quadrants, because the B and I quadrants is where you'll find people and money working for you. And as people and money keep working for you, your wealth keep increasing. Now, here's another question that I do want you to ponder. Which quadrant would you see people paying the most income tax? Well, I do hope you said the E quadrant, because this is where people pay the most income tax. And I think this is why school conditions us to become employees. Oh yes, school conditions us to become employees. Would actually make sense when you think about it, because if our government is paying for public education, because do keep in mind that it is the government that pays for public education, right? And if the government is paying for public education, why wouldn't they have a system that indoctrinates us to become employees? Because if we're employees, that means we're going to pay the most tax, right? And government coffers are filled from the taxes that we pay. So it makes sense. So of course government wants to get as much taxes from us as possible. They even get our parents reciting the mantra over and over to us. Go to school to get a good education so you can get a good job to take care of yourself and your family. Well, I don't know about you, but I went to university to get a good education. Then I went back again for my master's to get an even better education. And I likely would have gone back again to do my PhD were it not for Robert Kiyosaki. My degrees were definitely not fast tracking me to financial freedom. So when I heard Kiyosaki said, despite the many degrees that his poor dad, which is his real dad, who was an educator with a PhD, had, he didn't gain financial freedom, but had to rely on his pension for retirement. When I heard that, I was like, what? I am also an educator. And I was thinking about getting my PhD. And I thought about it. People like to say, well, we do get good pension, but do I really want to just depend on that pension? And look at how things are today. Will that be sufficient for me? I want to be on the beach sipping pina colada too, a month or two or more, right? But can my pension do that? Will that be sufficient? So Kiyosaki also shared that his rich dad, who was a high school dropout, used real estate to gain financial freedom. When I heard that, I was hungry to learn more. So while I value formal education, and in many ways, I'm very happy that I didn't just stop at my first degree, but I also did my master's. As I contemplated doing a PhD, however, I learned to value achieving financial independence over having more academic credentials to my name. Formal education is indeed important. And come on, you know that I'm a super teacher for a reason, right? I'm a super teacher at heart. Teaching is my whole life. But I had a whole paradigm shift about financial freedom when I heard Kiyosaki explain the cash flow quadrant and how to get out of the rat race. I knew I had to make significant changes to my thinking, and OMG, it is so tough when your parents cement something in your mind that you begin to question. You start to question this, and you have this dissonance going on, and you're like, oh my gosh, is this happening? But like Wayne Dyer always say, change your thinking and you change your life. Well, my life changed significantly when I realized that it's not a doctorate that will give me financial freedom fast. It is learning how to make money work for me. This is why I started investing in real estate, and I indulge in other things too. But for real estate, I essentially use OPM, other people's money, aka the banks who give me mortgages to buy investment properties to build some wealth for me and my family. And this way I know I will not have to depend on just my pension, right? So right now, I do reside in all four quadrants, which I'm cool with because while I pay way too much taxes in the E quadrant, I do reap some good rewards from tax benefits in the other three quadrants. So it's all good. So I will end today's episode with these questions. 1, which quadrants do you currently reside in? Could be one quadrant, but where do you currently reside on the cash flow quadrant? Which quadrant do you want to be in? And if you're not where you want to be right now, what are you going to do about it? Until next time, do all good.